a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. On February 14, 2018, a mass shooting occurred at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. 17 people were killed, and 17 more were wounded, all by bullets, making it one of the world's deadliest school massacres. The suspected perpetrator, Nikolas Jacob Cruz, was identified by witnesses and arrested shortly afterward. He confessed, according to the Broward County Sheriff's Office. He was charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 attempted murders. Police and prosecutors have not yet offered a motive and are investigating a pattern of disciplinary issues and unnerving behavior. The Sheriff's Office received a number of tips in 2016 and 2017 about Cruz's threats to carry out a school shooting. The Federal Bureau of Investigation learned a YouTube user with the username Nikolas Cruz wrote about becoming a school shooter in September 2017, but couldn't identify the user. In January 2018, a direct complaint of a death threat by Cruz was not forwarded to the agency by its tip-line. Some students began campaigning for gun control and founded the advocacy group Never Again MSD. The Florida legislature passed a bill to raise the minimum age for buying rifles to 21, establish waiting periods and background checks, provide a program for the arming of some teachers and the hiring of school police, ban bump stocks, and bar potentially violent or mentally unhealthy people arrested under certain laws from possessing guns. In all, it allocates around $400 million. Shooting. The shooting took place during the afternoon of February 14, 2018, at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, an affluent suburb about 30 miles northwest of Fort Lauderdale. The suspected shooter, former student Nikolas Cruz, took an Uber ride and was dropped off at the school at 2:19 p.m. EST. Cruz entered Building 12, a three-story structure containing 30 classrooms typically occupied by about 900 students and 30 teachers. Armed with an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle and multiple small-capacity magazines, he activated a fire alarm and began firing at students and teachers. The fire alarm caused confusion because there had been a fire drill earlier in the day. At about 2:21, near dismissal time, staff members heard gunfire and activated a code red lockdown. A school resource officer of the Broward County Sheriff's Office ran to the scene, but took a position between two other buildings next to Building 12. He later said he did not enter Building 12 because he thought the shots were coming from outside. The shooting lasted 6 minutes, after which Cruz dropped his rifle on the third floor of the building and left the scene by blending in with fleeing students. He walked to a Walmart, where he purchased a soda at its Subway restaurant. He then walked to a McDonald's and lingered before leaving on foot at 3:01. At about 3:40, he was stopped by a police officer in Coral Springs 2 miles from the school and taken into custody without incident. He was taken to a hospital emergency room with labored breathing, released after 40 minutes, then booked into the Broward County Jail. School surveillance camera footage revealed Cruz as the suspected perpetrator. He was recognized by a staffer before he entered the building, and was also recognized by witnesses during the attack. Victims. There were 34 victims, 17 killed and 17 wounded. 17 people were taken to area hospitals, including 15 victims, 2 of whom soon died. 3 remained in critical condition the day after the shooting and 1 by the following day. The 17 people who were killed included 14 students and 3 staff members. The victims who died were: Scott Beigel, a geography teacher, was killed after he unlocked a classroom for students to hide in, and some survived because the gunman did not enter the classroom. Aaron Fesh, an assistant football coach and security guard, was shot and killed as he shielded 2 students. Chris Hickson, the school's athletic director, was killed as he ran toward the sound of the gunfire and tried to help fleeing students. 15-year-old Peter Wang was last seen in his junior reserve officers training corps uniform, holding open doors so others could get out more quickly. He was called a hero, and a White House petition was circulated calling for him to be buried with full military honors. He, Elena Petty, and Martin Dookie were all posthumously honored by the U.S. Army with the ROTC Medal for heroism at their funerals, and Wang was buried in his trot blues uniform. On February 20, he was awarded a rare posthumous admission to the United States Military Academy. Nikolas Cruz. The alleged shooter was identified as Nikolas Jacob Cruz, a former student who was expelled from the school. He was born in South Florida on September 24, 1998, and was adopted at birth. His adoptive father died at age 67 in 2004. His adoptive mother died at age 68 in November 2017, 3 months before the shooting. He had been living with relatives and friends since her death. Cruz was a member of the Juneau Reserve Officers Training Corps and had received multiple awards, including academic achievement, for maintaining an A grade and Rotkin Bs in other subjects, according to CNN. He was also a member of his school's varsity air rifle team. Cruz had behavior issues since middle school, but a Washington Post writer said he was entrenched in the process for getting students help rather than referring them to law enforcement, and he was transferred between schools 6 times in 3 years to deal with these problems. In 2014, he was transferred to a school for children with emotional or learning disabilities. He returned to Stoneman Douglas High School 2 years later, only to be banished from the school in 2017 for disciplinary reasons. An email from the school administration had circulated among teachers, warning that he had made threats against other students. This led the school to ban him from wearing a backpack on campus. The Florida Department of Children and Families investigated him in September 2016 for Snapchat posts in which he cut both his arms and said he planned to buy a gun. State investigators reported he had depression, autism, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. In their assessment, they concluded he was at low risk of harming himself or others. He had previously received mental health treatment, but had not received treatment in the year leading up to the shooting. Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel described Cruz's online profiles and accounts as very, very disturbing. They contained pictures and posts of him with a variety of weapons, including long knives, a shotgun, a pistol, and a BB gun. Police said he held extremist views, and social media accounts believed to be linked to him contain anti-black and anti-Muslim slurs. YouTube comments linked to him include, "I wanna die fighting killing shit ton of people," threats against police officers and Antifa, and intent to mimic the University of Texas Tower shooting. In February 2017, he purchased an AR-15 style rifle he allegedly used for the shooting from a Coral Springs gun store. CNN reported that Cruz was in a private Instagram group chat when he advocated for the killing of Mexicans, blacks, and gay people. He said his hate for black people was simply because they were black. He referred to white women in interracial relationships as traitors and expressed anti-immigrant and anti-Semitic views. A former classmate said Cruz had anger management problems and often joked about guns and gun violence, including shooting up establishments. A 2016 graduate's brother described him as super stressed out all the time and talked about guns a lot and tried to hide his face. A student who was enrolled at the school at the time of the shooting said, "I think everyone had in their minds if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be him." A classmate who was assigned to work with him in sophomore year said, "He told me how he got kicked out of 2 private schools. He was held back twice. He had aspirations to join the military. He enjoyed hunting. He also bragged about killing animals," a student's mother said. A neighbor said his mother would call the police over to the house to try to talk some sense into him. Earlier warnings to law enforcement. According to Sheriff Scott Israel, his office received 23 calls about Cruz over a decade, but this figure is in dispute. CNN obtained a sheriff's office log showing that from 2008 to 2017, at least 45 calls were made in reference to Cruz, his brother, or the family home. The calls included an anonymous tip on February 5, 2016, that Cruz had threatened to shoot up the school, and a tip on November 30, 2017 that Cruz might be a school shooter in the making, and that he collected knives and guns. On September 23, 2016, a peer counselor notified the school resource officer of his suicide attempt and intent to buy a gun. The school indicated it would do a threat assessment. On September 24, 2017, a user with the username Nikolas Cruz posted a comment to a YouTube video. It read, "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." The video's uploader reported the comment to the FBI. According to Agent Robert Lasky, the agency conducted database reviews, but was unable to track down the individual who made the threatening comment. On January 5, 2018, the FBI's public access line received a tip from a person who was close to Cruz. On February 16, the agency released a statement that detailed this information. According to the statement, the caller provided information about Cruz's gun ownership, desire to kill people, erratic behavior, and disturbing social media posts, as well as the potential of him conducting a school shooting. After conducting an investigation, the FBI said the tip line did not follow protocol when the information was not forwarded to the Miami field office, where investigative steps would have been taken. The FBI opened a probe into the tip line's operations. Legal proceedings. At his arraignment the day after the shootings, Cruz was charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder and ordered held without bond. If convicted of first-degree murder, he faces either the death penalty or life without parole. According to an affidavit by the sheriff's office, Cruz confessed to the shooting. He also told officers that he brought additional loaded magazines hidden in a backpack. The public defender's office said he will plead guilty if the death penalty is taken off the table. The chief public defender said it is yet unknown if his attorneys will seek an insanity defense. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi said she is certain prosecutors will seek the death penalty. Cruz was placed on suicide watch in an isolation cell after the arraignment. The defense, headed by Gordon Weeks, asked Judge Elizabeth Shearer to recuse herself, claiming her previous comments and rulings showed favoritism toward prosecutors, which prevented a fair trial. She disagreed and declined the request on February 26. On March 7, Cruz was indicted by a grand jury on 34 charges, 17 counts of first-degree murder, and 17 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Aftermath. The school district provided grief counseling to students and their families. Attorney General Bondi said the fees of funerals and counseling would be paid for by the state. At least 3 counties of Florida and Virginia increased police presence at schools on February 15 in response to the shooting. The building where the shooting took place will be torn down. The school reopened to students amid a heavy police presence on February 28, 2 weeks after the shooting. Ty Thompson, the school's principal, emphasized the first week back would be focused on healing, with classes ending at 11:40 a.m. through March 2. He tweeted, "Remember, our focus is on emotional readiness and comfort, not curriculum, so there is no need for backpacks. Come ready to start the healing process and acclaim thinnest." Extra counseling and therapy dogs were provided to students upon return. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?